Good evening. I would like to call the January 24, 2023 regular city council meeting to order. I would like to point out that this meeting is being hosted through live stream on the city website and by Zoom teleconference. I would like to remind council to have their microphones turned on and positioned so the audience can hear. City Clerk, may we have a roll call, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Krupa.
Here.
Councilmember Meyer.
Here.
Councilmember Peterson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lowenthal. Here. Mayor Mayos.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you. The invocation will be by Chris Engel of Bible Fellowship Church, after which Councilmember Peterson will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand by.
Thank you so much. Let's pray. Lord, we come to you tonight and we thank you, God, for the opportunity to be in this place. We recognize today, Lord, once again, that you are sitting on your throne today and that you have told us in the scriptures that you raise up kings and you raise up those in leadership. We recognize, God, also from your word that you have told us that you establish governments and those in ruling powers and positions, and that nobody holds a position or a seat in this world without your sovereign blessing and control. We also humbly come to you, Lord, and seek your wisdom and your guidance, for we know that you have told us in your word that you are the source of all that is good. For you have said that every good and perfect gift comes from above. It comes from our Father in heaven, the Father of lights. And we also recognize today, God, that you are the source of righteousness and of justice in our world. And so we seek your face today, God, and we seek your wisdom. And we ask, God, that you would provide all of our council members today, Lord, a divine sense of wisdom. For we know that wisdom comes from you, God, for you have said that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And so we're asking, God, for your blessing today of wisdom. And we also look forward to the future hope, Lord, where you have told us that you will be establishing your rule and reign once again on this earth, that the government will rest upon your shoulders, and that of your kingdom and of your peace, Lord, you have said that there will be no end. And so we live today with the hope that someday we will live as subjects, Lord, under your rule and your reign. And we look forward to the day where the earth will once again be established with peace and with righteousness. But in the meantime, Lord, we seek to honor you with the decisions that we make and the way that we live our lives. So would you bless us? And so we just dedicate this time to you, and we pray all of these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. Councilman Peterson.
1, 2, 3.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There is a 3-minute per person time limit for all general public comments on non-public hearing items. All who wish to speak, including council members and staff, need to be recognized by the mayor before speaking. For those that wish to join by Zoom, you will be asked to raise your hand if you would like to speak. Please state your name and item you are commenting on before speaking. We will take public comment for items listed on the agenda. And over these. May I have Tom Lodge, please?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members. Mine is really quick. I sent out 400 invitations for a party for my wife's surprise birthday party. And I went to pay the library the other day and they told me, even though I'm penciled in, they cannot rent me the room because the elevator is not working. So can I get some sort of guarantee that this elevator is going to be working by April so I can go ahead with this party instead of trying to scramble to find another place to hold it?
Yeah, I'll look into it and get a hold of you, Mr. Lodge.
I would appreciate it highly. Thank you very much. Guys, have a
Thank
good
you,
night.
sir. Larry Graves.
John, don't start my time just yet. I've got a couple things to say. First, I would like to commend our police department and primarily the chief of police, Eddie Poost, for providing an advanced notice of the increased police activity in our neighborhood to finalize the investigation of the mass shooting. He should be applauded for the courtesy and consideration for his concern for the welfare of our senior citizens at the Lakes at Hema West. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, now I can start my time. All right. Good evening, Mayor Joe Mills, Hemi City Council members. I'm Larry Graves, president of the HOA at the Lakes of Hema West for the past 20 years. Hema West is the largest 55+ mobile home community in Hemet and the third largest in the state of California. I am here seeking help from the city regarding our most recent dilemma. The managing partner, park manager, representing the owners, informed all residents at the Lakes at Hema West on November 1st, 2022, that our existing rental agreement or leases would be revoked on January 1st, 2023. The original leases most of us had stated that the rent increases would be guided by the County of Riverside Consumer Price Index percentage on December 31st of the prior year and would include a 5% cap. This was established more than 50 years ago, and all the residents of the Lakes at Hema West agreed to it and signed the agreement for a 1-year lease. After the 1-year lease expired, we continued on a monthly basis for many, many years. The new rental agreement has no guide or limit on rent increases and also provides for a capital expenditure pass-through cost up to 10% of the base rent for that unit to be added to the rent in addition to the rent increase. We, the residents at the Lakes at Hema West, find this agreement unreasonable and unfair. 95% of our residents are on fixed income from the government. We are preparing to take legal action against this open agreement, which we really can't afford. This has happened most recently in 2 locations in Southern California, and local government passed a rent stabilization ordinance. The city of Pomona and the national city in San Diego both came to the aid of mobile homeowners renting space in their community. The county CPI index was the guide with a 4% cap was the final result. Presently, Hemet has the highest concentration of mobile home sites of all 58 counties in the state of California with 6,924 sites. If this happens to the Lakes at Hema West, it will also affect the other 48 mobile home parks in the city of Hemet. I've given copies of the existing rental agreement and copies of the new rental agreement to council members Harley Myers and Linda Krupa, along with the press releases from Pomona and National City. We desperately hope the Hemet City Council will come to our aid by incorporating a rent stabilization ordinance that states that the Riverside CPI will be used as a guide with a 4% cap and disallowing additional capital expenditures pass-through costs onto the tenant. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. and Mrs. Formica, do you want to come up separate or together? I can't hear you. Okay, thank you.
Hello, Mayor Males and the city council members. I wasn't sure if I was going to speak now. I'm more of a, once I hear something, then I know what I'm going to say. But I just wanted to kind of let you know what we've been working with for the last 2 years almost. We bought a property in May. We put an offer on a property in May of 2021. Dr. Straubinger's office, it's on State Street, right across from DMV. And with the idea of expanding the building and upgrading the lot, because of different liens and things, the loan didn't go through, or the sale didn't go through till November. But now it's been about 1 year and 2 months since we've been trying to get the process of going through permits. It's been a long process, and I know that a lot of people have been working on it, but it seems to me like there should be there's got to be a way to make people who are trying to improve the valley, make it easier on them rather than harder. And I know that we're in the right direction. We're going in the right direction with the new city manager, and I'm excited about what's happening. But whatever comes from now till we finally get our permits, you know, we got a city ordinance saying we had to clean up the building, which we understand, had to take down this trash enclosure because homeless people were living there. We cleaned it out. You know, my son and I would go down and clean it out. And Ed would come down and clean it out, and we'd take it to the dump, and then we'd come back 2 weeks later and clean it out and take it to the dump. And it's just been a long process. So some of the things are going to be on the agenda later on today. One of them is, I don't think it's on the agenda, but the sidewalk was built a long time ago, and it's not to code. And it was built a little bit on our property, and they're asking us to pay for the redoing of the sidewalk and redoing of the property, even though it wasn't authorized to be on our property when they built it. And it seems like it would be a nice thing a gesture of the city to split the cost because of all the time delay. We put our plans in March, and we still don't have the final conditions of approval net yet. And that's that's 10 months since we haven't had them. So not very eloquent, but I just hope you understand that we really want it to make a beautiful place for the valley. We've been doing dentistry here for 32 years. I don't do dentistry, but we want to make it a nice place for the valley. We want to serve the people in the valley. And if we can help us in whatever way you can, we would really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Formica? Fine, okay. Harry Larned or Larned? Leonard?
Good evening, Mayor Maylees and the city council. I'm just here to talk about our American Legion Post. We are having, in association with the Outreach Warriors, a welcome home luncheon. And this is going to be on March 18th at 12:30. Now, Martha and Mike Kesloff, their mission is to welcome home veterans who have been overseas, in Vietnam especially, and because they never got a welcome home when they first came back. And so this is their way of extending a love to the veterans so that they know that they are welcome. And this really does help an awful lot of veterans who think that they just are not appreciated anymore. And they, it's just a wonderful mission that they are doing. So you're all invited. The public is invited. The canteen will be open. And you can go ahead and, if you want to come, RSVP to Martha. And I have her phone number, or you can go ahead and just contact the mayor or any of the council members up here, because I think you all know who Martha is. And we can, and this is, like I say, open to the public. So again, this is on March 18th, 2023 at 12:30. And this is a great thing that they're doing for the veterans. And we're located at 124 Ramona, which is about a block west of Alessandro. And speaking of Ramona and Alessandro, this is the 100th anniversary for the Ramona pageant. And so we are having a lot of things that are going to be happening this year. So just keep your eyes and ears open. There's going to be a lot of events going to take place between now and April when we have the pageant. So it's going to be an exciting time for the city of Hemet. This is the 100th anniversary of the Ramona pageant. And this is the longest running outdoor play in the United States. So this is a great feather in the cap for the city of Hemet. And I hope that the city itself gets behind it. And when we were in the Rose Parade, we had a carriage in the Rose Parade. We got calls from across the United States wanting to buy tickets for the Ramona pageant. And Norm Chris's said he was just overwhelmed with all the people who were calling after the parade was over, wanting to come back and come to Hemet. This is a big deal for our town, and it's even on our city seal right there. So let's make this a big year for the Ramona pageant. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Jerry Ann Franklin.
You guys got me all twisted up here with everybody changing your seats around. It's all crazy, 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 I tell you. Okay, so you all have probably seen the email that I sent to Stephen, and he passed around. You heard Larry Graves making comments about the rent agreement that are at the lakes at Hemet West, what they're trying to put through. And we need your help. This is very serious. This is not something that can be sat on. This is not something that we can wait a couple of months for. This is not something that we can wait a few more months to look into. This is not a Devonshire and Myers. This is not something that we can run by and do tests and see what other areas are doing. This is something that we need city council to step up and do what city council can do. You guys have the ability to write an ordinance. So tonight I am doing what Stephen told me to do, and I'm going to ask the city council, and I'm going to read this directly from an email that he sent me because I think he is wise and his words are better than mine. I have received your email. Under the city council's rules of procedure, I would need the city council at their regular meeting, which is this one, the mayor, which, hey, Joe Males, or the city manager, which we would go with the interim, to direct me to prepare the ordinance and bring it forward. I recommend that you either make a public statement and at the next meeting, asking for an ordinance, which I am doing right now, along the lines to see if the city council would like it prepared or send them a correspondence regarding the same. And then he said he was going to send a copy of my email. This is what we are asking for. Mr. Graves asked for 4%. We really want 3% cap. You can give that to us. You can protect us. You can write the city ordinance so that every senior park in Hemet is protected. We are 55 and older parks. Many of us are working with a very limited income. Many people are stretched to the max. If their increase is over 5%, they can't afford to live in their homes. They will become what? Homeless. What are we trying to prevent in our city? Homelessness. So what are we going to do to stop further homelessness and have our elderly in the streets? We are going to stand together with city council at the head, and you guys are going to step up and do this for us. Please make the red light stop,
Well, your time's up, but
but please.
we understand where you're coming from. We will work on something because I personally know how the electricity, the gas, everything's going up, and for you to
Everything
live
is.
and have increases,
Please.
it's hard for you.
I
So
will do whatever you need from me, city council, and you know I will. You
Thank you.
know I will.
and we will get something going. I can't promise you what, but we'll get something.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank
Because
you.
you're going to keep hearing from me.
Thomas. Mr. Anthony Thomas?
Mayor, members of the city council. My name is Anthony, and I'm presenting to you what I feel that's necessary, the issue that I'm hearing around the city about Valley Restart. That's a program that was created to help local men and women and children find their way back to enjoying familyhood. And within doing that, the only individuals who can rely at those places, only if you have a family with children or if you're married. You don't have to have children. Those are the only individuals who have the rightful say to be at that place of residence. And I'm asking all members of the city council to see if there's a general body that I can sit, because I understand the nature of governing one. And if you governing one, others gonna follow. If you're doing it right, they gonna ask. Main thing, ask questions. And I'm asking, is there a general consensus body in which I can sit on the Valley Restart? Because things need to change, because you have young men such as myself who been out now for 14 months, and I'm striving, I'm doing what it has to be done to move forward and making sure that I'm okay. And if I'm not okay, then nobody in Hemet is okay. Safety comes first. And there's men and women on the streets that's been paroled but can't get the necessary benefits to help them move forward. Me, I didn't have to go to a halfway house. I came straight out, no parole, no probation. I had to show myself here and act like I want to be here so people can see me here. That's it.
Thank you. City Clerk, were there any electronic comments submitted to be read aloud?
Thank you, Mayor. No e-comments, but I'll call out to the Zoom call to see if there's anyone on the Zoom call. Now is your chance to raise your hand, and we'll give you just a few moments. I'll unmute you if you raise your hand. You'll have 3 minutes with the council. Seeing none, Mayor, there's no public comment.
Are there any members of the public participating through Zoom that would like to comment on any item? Did I just say that?
You did.
I thought so. I thought it sounded familiar. Okay, at this point, we will take public comments for items not listed on the agenda.
I think
Yeah.
we're down here.
Okay, let me introduce our new, I'd like to introduce Kevin Manning, our new Community Development Director.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. It's nice to have the term new in front of my name. That's why I came here. I wanted to be called new. I do appreciate the fact that the interim city manager had enough faith in me to hire me on an interim basis. Hopefully I'll be qualified enough when you are looking for a permanent position that I'll be qualified for that and I can take it permanently. But I just want to let you know that I pledge to you right now that I'm going to do my darndest to turn around things so there's a lot more positivity towards the city of Hemet. Because as a person who's been in the development community for almost 50 years, there's quite a few disparaging comments about the city of Hemet from the development community, and I need to help you turn that around. So I pledge I will do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're looking forward to it. We will now move to presentations. We will start with a Hemet highlight reel, followed by a presentation by Southern California Edison, and then finally end with the Department of Life Safety update presentation. Okay. Southern California Edison Public Safety and Power Shutoffs information presentation, please.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Eileen Flores. I'm the city's Government Relations Manager from SCE. Also this evening, I have two of my colleagues with me here today. We want to thank you for inviting us this evening so that we can provide a quick overview about our wildfire mitigation efforts. provide also information about public safety power shutoffs, information about the different types of outages, and also the communications and notification programs that are in place for the community that they can sign up for so that they can get advanced notifications. And then we'll also go into the customer service programs that will help the community prepare for outages and also the assistance that's available during an outage. And then we'll answer any questions that you have. And we'll also, on the slides, we also have information and resources on how the community can sign up for these notifications. And so I'll have my colleague.
Thank you, Eileen, and thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Bob Steens. I'm a senior project manager with Edison. And unlike Eileen, who gets to spend a lot of time out in the community, I am stuck in our, well, I don't know, our headquarters, but home or whatever. But I, for the last, 4 or 5 years now, have concentrated exclusively almost on wildfire, our public safety power shutoffs. I am also, whenever we activate for a public safety power shutoff, what we call our dedicated liaison officer. So I'm in our emergency operations center, our virtual emergency operations center, coordinating with local governments and other stakeholders. So we got lucky last year, but prior to last year, we all know California's just been devastated by wildfires. 6 of the 7 largest fires in California history have happened since 2020. So as a result of that, utility, one of the reasons, and utility caused fires are one of those reasons. So as a result of that, not just Edison, but San Diego Gas and Electric, Pacific Gas and Electric, and other utilities. And I'm not going to go through this. I realize it's an eye chart here, but have spent a lot of time and effort and resources and money into reducing the risk of wildfire for our communities. So that started off, just hit a couple of the areas here of vegetation management. We have over the last few years expanded our vegetation management program to make sure that trying to avoid trees and vegetation from blowing into our lines or falling into our lines. So we have programs where we'll go out and trim those trees. And actually for homeowners, we'll trim them free of charge. We also have programs where if we find a tree that's outside of our 14-foot clearance zone, but it looks like it's dead or dying, and if it does continue to deteriorate, will fall into our lines, we'll arrange to remove that. We're also doing, I know Ryan's going to talk a little bit about some of our customer care programs. We're doing, looking at targeted undergrounding in certain areas, as well as our biggest tool that we're deploying is what we call insulated wire or covered wire. Right now, the industry standard forever has been bare metal wire. But with the increased droughts and conditions we've been seeing, we've made the decision, as well as the other utilities, in our higher fire prone areas, to replace those bare metal wires with covered wires. And those wires, same wire inside, but it has a polymer coating on it, so that if that palm frond blows 100 feet into the lines, instead of potentially landing on those lines, starting on fire and falling, catching on fire and falling down, if that same, and that could happen if the bare metal wires, if that same palm frond falls onto a covered conductor, unless it hits a certain area, the chance of it starting a fire are significantly reduced. And we've put in thousands of miles of that so far this year, over the last few years, and are continuing that program over the next couple of years. Some of the other programs we're doing here we're helping fund a quick reaction force of helicopters that can help respond to wildfires. And these helicopters have a very large capability of dropping water on fires. It's a deal we have with county fire departments. This county is not part of it, but it's a mutual aid agreement. And if there's a fire here, they would be dispatched here as well. So the different types of outage Eileen asked me to talk about. Of course, being a utility, we've got a ton of acronyms and terms for everything. So there's 5 basically types of outages. The first one is what we call maintenance outage. So that's if we have to go out and repair a deteriorated pole, or if we're out putting the covered conductor on, that's what we call a maintenance outage. We give residents as well as the city advance warning of that. That when that outage is going to happen, we realize it's inconvenient to have your power off for maybe up to 8 hours, but we do give customers advance warning of that. A repair outage is car hits a pole or something happens, a piece of equipment fails, and we immediately have to go out and repair that. Now, that's not something we can give advance warning for, but if you do sign up for notifications, and we have some information in here how to do that, if there is a repair outage, you will get called or emailed or text, depending on your preference, to get information about what the outage is and our estimated restoration time. An emergency outage is sort of a hybrid. It's like if we're out inspecting a piece of equipment and we see, okay, that's something we got to fix right away. We will de-energize it and fix it right away. But again, if you're signed up for repair outage notifications, you will get that notification. Rotating outage, that's something we did I'm sorry, I've lost track of time. I think 2 years ago. And that is when there's just not enough power in the state grid, and the California Independent System Operator will order not just the investor-owned utilities, but other utilities to what we call shed load. So we have our service territory broken up into a number of what we call groups, and we will de-energize those. Again, as long as you're signed up for notices, you will get advance warning of those. The good part about those is they only last an hour. So we'll turn one group off for an hour, re-energize it, and turn another group off for an hour. And if you look at a map, it's like one group. It's spread out over our entire service territory. So we're not just turning off one city at a time. It's turning off neighborhoods throughout our service territory. Now, public safety power shutoff. That's, I know, something a lot of interest in this community, and unfortunately, we did do public safety power shutoffs this last Thanksgiving. And unfortunately, it's just, Thanksgiving is when that time of year is when we see the Santa Ana winds, and we hadn't had rain. So again, it's a tool we use during dangerous fire conditions, and it's not just wind speed. There's a very complicated model that it's based on. It's based on wind speed, humidity, what the fuel conditions are is one of the main conditions. And that all gets factored into a formula that we call our fire potential index. So it's a combination of, high winds as well as a high fire potential index. Now, I don't think we're having it out in this area, but other areas of our service territory right now are having very high winds. I think we're having like 80-mile-an-hour winds in some parts of our service territory. But with all the rain we've had over the past month, we're not concerned about a large fire starting. So again, the reason we do this is to prevent that fire from starting, is the reason we do that. Hopefully, as we replace more and more of our bare metal wire with the covered conductor and other grid hardening, we'll be able to reduce the use of that public safety power shutoff, because although we still may have to shut it off, the wind speeds that we shut it off at are much higher. It primarily impacts circuits that are in a high fire risk area. And I know if you're a resident of Four Seasons, you might say, hey, I'm not in a high fire risk area. And you're right. You may not be. And I have a slide to show this in a second, but the problem is it's where the line has to come from our substation through a high fire risk area to get to Four Seasons. And just note, I talked to our engineers a couple of days ago or last week. I know I'd be coming out here. We are looking at solutions to minimize or reduce the chance of use of PSPS throughout our service territory. But after the Thanksgiving event, our engineers are going back and looking specifically what they can do for that community. So they're looking at a couple options, and hopefully we'll be able to come back to the city and Four Seasons soon with some options. We use multiple methods to notify. Again, but the key is, and I think Ryan will talk about this in a minute, key is to sign up for the notifications. So I'm sure the city or a county has like a reverse 911 type system. Unless you tell us your phone number and email, we can't contact you. And if you're like me, when you signed up for your Edison account 20 years ago, you had this thing called a landline. You don't use that anymore. So, make sure we have your cell phone number, your email, and make sure you're signed up. You can go to sce.com/PSPS, and we'll make sure you're signed up for that. We have seen, since we've been doing the excuse me, the covered conductor and the grid hardening work. We have seen a pretty substantial reduction in the use of PSPS. I know in 2020, we had about 10 events, I believe. Last year, we only had 3. Now, some of that is actually a result of the weather, but also a lot of it is a reduction as a result of the grid hardening we're doing. So this is a question we get a lot. Why is my power on, but my neighbor 2 streets down doesn't? Or even in some cases across the street. And it all depends on where the circuit comes from. So you might be served like this on the left, as we say, you know, you may not be in that high fire risk area, but the circuit that serves you comes through a high fire risk area where there's lots of vegetation and that type of stuff. But you know, your neighbor, again, in some cases across the street, that circuit may come from a different substation. So it is not impacted by PSPS. And I know that's a question we get a lot. PSPS communications. So as again, we provide notifications through again, you know, signing up for it to customers. We also notify the city. That's a program I help manage. All those emails and texts and that we send to the city. And the ones we send to the city are different than the ones we send to customers. The customer is, you know, your house is going to be impacted or your business. The ones we send to the city will say what circuit's going to be impacted. So the city can then look at the maps that we've provided, take advantage of our public safety partner portal, and to see exactly what area could be impacted. And so they can prepare whatever preparedness the city needs to do. We have and in fact, we just updated this again, I think late last week, early this week, a new outage map. Prior to middle of last year, if you had to go to 2 or 3 different sources to see if you were impacted by an outage, if you were impacted by a maintenance outage or repair outage, it was on one map. If it was a PSPS, it was on another map. It's a rotating outage, but it was on yet another map. That's now all combined. And you can type in your address to see if you're potentially going to be impacted by a public safety power shutoff, or if you're impacted by an outage and it's mobile phone accessible and very friendly for mobile phones. You can type in your address and get a status of it. And again, that's something we just rolled out a big update to it either this week or late last week. One other thing we've rolled out is I should have done a little more research I know there's a lot of mobile home park communities in the city. If they're what we call master metered. So if, you know, the individual tenants or mobile homes aren't metered, you can sign up for what we call address level alerts, so that you can put in the address of your mobile home park. And even if you are not even if you don't have a meter at your mobile home park, it's master metered, you will get notifications of the public safety power shutoff. So that's an improvement we did last year or maybe the year before. So with that, I want to turn it over to Ryan, who's going to talk about some of our customer programs. And then we're all here happy to answer questions.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Ryan Bullard, and I'm a senior manager with our customer care group, working on customer programs that help support impacted customers through these types of events. So thank you, Bob, for kind of walking through a number of the different notifications. But when we do experience a PSPS event, one of the things that you can find on our partner portal is sort of like our locations for what we call customer resource centers, CRCs, or community crew vehicles. So when we know that there's an impacted community, what we try to do is find a site or a location where we can actually have a physical presence available for the community members to go if they needed to receive additional services, whether it's water, snacks, the ability to charge their phones, as well as providing general resiliency kits for these customers. So in this particular last Thanksgiving Day event, one thing that we had was a CVC closer to the Stater Brothers location. I think it's like 5 miles from the Four Seasons location. We can also provide things like water, ice, as well as insulated bags for if there are any medicine needs. As well as in this particular case, it was obviously a fairly cold Thanksgiving Day. And so what we did was provide some blankets as well as gift cards to help community members through the Thanksgiving Day event. Additionally, not everybody can make it to a CVC location or a vehicle location. There's sometimes need for individuals with access and functional needs to have additional support and additional resources available to them. And in order to help provide that, we partner with 211 as a resource to help these individuals provide the special referrals that they need and additional special resources that they could provide, whether that be things like hotel accommodations, transportation obligations, or even if there needs to be food delivered to their facility or their house. So one thing that also want to encourage folks to do is 211, you can sign up for notifications so that you can get notification of supports available during this type of activity, as well as our broader SCE notifications as well. Finally, we have some customer resiliency programs for customers that are either on like medical baseline and in high fire risk areas. And so all of this can actually be found on our website, which we'll go to here in a second. But there's also, for folks that don't meet some of these more specific criteria, general programs and rebates for batteries that can help support individuals if they need to get through an evening or a few hours with power interruption. And so you can find all this information on SCE.com/wildfire. There's actually specific call outs for a notifications tab, individual resources for those with access and functional needs, as well as some of the other features that Bob had highlighted. So I want to pause there and see if there's any questions.
I have many comments and questions, so I don't know when you want me to start, but.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the slide of the cute little mountain?
So which one?
The slide with the cute little mountain on it. It was like the second slide. Yes. So this is put into our slideshow, and I'm assuming because it represents mountains around us, but could you talk about the power's pathway of travel into the valley, please? Because I don't believe our power comes through Idlewild.
So so no, you're right. It doesn't come through Idlewild. Several, probably Valley Substation. I'm looking. Yeah, it's probably coming, from several. Well, the power comes throughout the west, so it comes in several feeds into the Riverside County area. There's a substation called Deborah Substation out near Palm Springs. There's also Valley Station in Riverside County. So they come from all the big transmission lines come from all over the place, from throughout Southern California area.
But listen, I need you to understand this is a public meeting, and this information is for the record so that our citizens understand what's going on. And for you to say that it comes from everywhere is not an okay answer. So I need a little bit more specific. Where does the power source come from that feeds our valley?
It comes from, I'd have to look, get it back to you with a detailed map, but there are several. Comes in from as far north. It comes in from the Tehachapi area. It gets fed into a main grid. So it's not just like one line that comes to Hemet. It comes throughout Southern California, from Arizona, from Northern California, from the Northwest, from Nevada. It all gets fed into the power lines. They're into the power grid, and then it gets dispersed throughout the power grid. So there's not one line or two lines that feed the Hemet Valley area.
Well, you're making it sound like there is, because you're saying that it all comes to one spot and then it comes to this valley.
No, I've said it comes from multiple spots. It comes from Arizona, comes from Nevada, it comes from Kern County, it comes from Long Beach, it comes from the Northwest, Pacific Northwest, all into the power grid. And then it gets dispersed throughout our service territory.
If you get those details and you just email them to me, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay, my other question is, another one of my questions is, what is the physical impact to our valley to date of your PSPs?
And so can you clarify that? What do you exactly?
Looking for the fiscal impact when you have these emergency power outages. What is the fiscal impact on our valley itself?
I do not believe we track fiscal impact.
Okay, so who gets to determine who is spared by your, or should I say sparred by your PSPs?
So it's people that are in high fire risk areas, and those high fire risk areas are defined by the California Public Utilities Commission. And then it depends on the weather conditions. So it's Again, in fact, many factors go into it. First thing is having to be in or served by a circuit that's in a high fire risk area. And then it's to experience those wind conditions and those conditions. And one of the things we try and do, and I think it might be on this map, is we try and segment as much as we can. So that instead of de-energizing an entire circuit, we try where possible to only de-energize that part of the circuit that is experiencing the high wind or the high fire conditions.
Okay, let's talk about Thanksgiving Day.
Okay.
Thanksgiving Day, the power was shut out, right? On the wrong end of town. So who gets to make that call?
I'm not sure what you mean by the wrong end of town.
Well, we shut off Four Seasons and the fire started on the opposite end of the valley.
So there wasn't a fire on Thanksgiving that I'm
Well,
aware
I
of.
sure saw smoke over my house.
Okay. Well, I'm not aware of a fire that was on
Mhm.
Thanksgiving. We can go back and look. But
Okay,
again, the problem, as we've talked about the Four Seasons, the issue with the Four Seasons complex is the power source that feeds the two circuits that feed the Four Seasons complex
Mhm.
come from through a high fire risk area to get there. So unfortunately, where the wind conditions were in that high fire risk area, in the area between our substation and the Four Seasons community. But as I mentioned, we're looking at ways through our engineers are looking at ways to minimize that from future events.
okay, and then who monitors, like, say the forecast is a very windy day, so everybody freaks out at Edison and we shut off the power.
So first I'll tell you, no one freaks out.
Well, they
Okay.
do when they flip that switch and they don't.
No, it's.
Well, you said when you started this conversation that you work with local agencies. I did not get a phone call from anybody last year when our powers went out.
Well, we can work with the city manager and
But you can't say that you work with us if you don't work with us, because I am accountable to the people that elected me, and you are probably accountable to the people that pay their bill.
yeah,
So that is why we're having this conversation.
we do notify the city when there are public safety power shutoffs, forecast it. Now, we can't always, we try and do 48 to 72. We can't always do that because it depends on the weather. But we do make sure that the city is notified on that. And we're happy to work with the city to make sure on who they want to get notified within the city. We're happy to work with the city on that. So no, and again, it is not a, it's a very, again,
Well, the
am
reason
REOC.
I laugh about it is because the wind will blow for the forecasted, it's forecasted for 10 hours. So our electricity is shut off for the 10 hours, but it only blows for 3. So who is not paying attention when the wind stops blowing? And then we still get to sit there in the heat. And we have elderly residents in this valley, as you know, from the cold incident.
So, answer to your question is, again, it depends on exactly, maybe your part of the circuit stopped blowing after 3 hours, but other parts were still blowing. The other thing is we have to go out after the circuit is de-energized. We have to go out and inspect it to make sure there is no damage to that circuit, to make sure there are no tree branches that have blown into the line or that there wasn't an equipment failure. So the line has to be inspected depending on, and I don't believe any of the circuits here need air patrol. Some circuits throughout our service territory, we have to fly with a helicopter because
We've
you
had
can't drive
several.
a truck.
Yeah.
So it again, just because once the wind stops blowing, we can't automatically turn on the switch. And one other good thing is we have multiple weather stations on our circuits. When we first started this out, we're relying on scattered weather stations. We now have in some of these areas 4 to 5 weather stations per circuit. So we can see very precisely where the wind has stopped blowing. We monitor that. And once the conditions are to a level where it's no longer meeting the threshold, we have crews on standby and many times patrolling in that area that they can go out and inspect the line as soon as they get the order and turn back on the power as soon as we can.
I got a question also, if you don't mind. Is there any redundancy built into this? Because you say that Four Seasons, their line comes in from a fire restricted area or something, but you don't have any redundancy where if that line goes down, it can come in from another direction?
We have 2 lines that feed the Four Seasons community. Just in this last event, unfortunately, both of them were impacting the wind, the weather conditions. But again, we are working with our engineers, are working to figure out ways, can we install other switches? Can we do other types of improvements to minimize the chance of Four Seasons being
What about
impacted?
underground, running everything underground? That's out of the question, or?
No, it's not out of the question. We are actually looking at some areas for undergrounding. It's currently going through some reviews. I don't know precisely exactly what areas we're looking at right now because it's still under review, but we are looking at opportunities to underground. But we have found the most economical solution is that covered conductor because that allows us to significantly raise the wind threshold, the wind speeds. But again, we are looking at what we call
What's the
targeted
threshold
underground.
now on the wind, that when it blows at what?
31 sustained, 42 gusts, and by putting the covered conductor up there, we're able to raise that about 10 miles an hour on each of those levels.
Yeah.
And we're looking at, can we raise it further? After each one of these incidents, we do extensive after actions and study it. And I've been working on this for December 2018 or 17 was the first time we did one of these. And the amount of improvement we've made even over the last year has been it's something I'm proud of.
Well, I know we're getting charged high rates now, and you should have the funds to fix whatever problems you have. So,
Well, again, yeah, and as you know, in a city, when you're trying to replace pipes and that, all that stuff is very expensive to do. But we are working on that as fast and expeditiously as we can.
Well, to your point on that, if we use $30 million annually of sales income tax for the city, that's about $6,800 per hour, assuming that it's a 12-hour day. So if you shut our power down for 12 hours, it's $350,000 per hour to our local economies. We have mom and pop businesses and we have a city to run. So to your point, more communication is better.
I agree. And that's why we have multiple communications channels available.
I'm signed up for every single notification possible, and I still don't get notified,
I'm happy
even
to
as a
work with
city
you
council
offline and
member.
check into that.
Well, I really do need the communication because, and the other thing is your infrastructure. My challenge to you as Edison gurus in here, you've done so much, you've said in the last few years, upgrading. My challenge to you is to get your infrastructure in order so that the citizens don't suffer.
And we're working on we are very expeditiously working on
And we have a very robust fire department. If you ever need to talk to get hands on the ground and eyes on the ground, we have people here that know our valley and they know where the hot spots are.
Appreciate that.
So I would appreciate it too, for you guys to think of the customers, because I hate to bring this up, but we had, what day was it that we had 4 telephone poles fall over on the ground, and we had many citizens without service. And so you're so concerned about the fire starting, but what about those citizens that went without service?
that happened during the Fairview fire too. So that we had two
Edison
catastrophes that happened.
incidents.
So
Yeah.
my recommendation that maybe you can give our council member a card and she can discuss this with you at some point.
Well, the point of this is to be on record so that the citizens know what's going on,
Yeah. definitely.
because they ask us these questions
And-
and we don't turn their power off.
Okay, any other questions?
Can you talk more about the programs that could help the elderly that have oxygen tanks?
Yeah, so, so some of the programs that might be the most relevant are around that 211 space. We understand that there are some inconvenience or some mobility challenges. And so recognizing that that is sort of an issue and not everyone may be able to go to a community resource center or a CCV vehicle. The ability to sign up for 211 is a good opportunity to see what kind of resources or accommodations can be made if there's an inconvenience to make sure that we can support our elderly customers. And that includes all the way things for hotels or transportation to those facilities, as well as things like hot meal delivery, so that foods can, so individuals have access to hot food during these types of activities. Yeah, Thank you. And there's also access to our critical care battery backup program. So this is a program that's really aimed at helping individuals with their resiliency. 211 again can help with a resiliency plan with individuals to see what they're eligible for in terms of getting access to a battery on a more permanent basis, or if there's an in-event loan pilot to kind of help individuals meet their needs, whether they have some medical equipment or activities that they need the ability to charge during these types of activities.
Do you know what the limitations for some of those programs are? So if there's a community that has maybe 555 plus individuals that live there, but maybe 35 of them may need some kind of assistance like that. Is there a limitation for the amount?
It is individual specific, right? So there are some considerations, whether they're in a high fire risk area, whether they're signed up for our medical baseline program, which does have some program eligibility rules to it, as well as something that's sort of an interim step because the medical baseline program might take a minute to sign up for. You can actually self-certify while that time period to do all the necessary enrollment requirements for the medical baseline program get satisfied.
And
So on that example, we would work with each of the individuals, right? 35 people. Not everybody needs particular assistance or may go somewhere else, for example.
Are you able to come out to some of our communities to kind of discuss some of these things more in detail? So, because if I go to them and say just call 211, then they're just kind of on their own. So, is it possible that you could come out to some of these areas and you could do a presentation so that people are aware of what SCE could offer them?
Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity to partner with the city to kind of figure out the best way to educate customers. Some things we've done in the past, for example, I think what you're referring to is attending to things like safety fairs or other community events where those individuals may be of interest. And so we can either find what the right solution is for best engaging the community in partnership with the city.
Okay. Can you leave a card with the city clerk for me?
We can coordinate that and get our information available to folks.
If I could add to that, we did meet after Thanksgiving to discuss, ways in the future to collaborate between SCE and these are our residents to be proactive as a city and get that information out. It could be either by the community groups or something we have on our website, but be more proactive because some of these programs I wasn't aware of and it was something new to me. So, and I've been here for 28 years. So it's something that we can do as a city as well to better take that initiative and help our residents by providing them with this information. And it could be ahead of time because obviously like Thanksgiving, we know high winds area. We could all do a better job just being more proactive and educating our community and provide them the services that would help them during those times. So
What about our meetings that we have at HOAs and nonprofits that we get together with you and the district council person and the mayor and sometimes the attorney, I believe.
Yeah, I
and
believe
have
it-
them there also.
yeah, and that's something that can be discussed in the future. I guess they're open to safety fairs. And I'm sure as we discuss more, even if they're not able to attend, maybe we could have some pamphlets in collaboration. Hey, here's some services that you can get during these times. But yeah, we're open to anything that we could provide our citizens to our residents during these times or these events.
Thank you, Mayor. You'd indicated a willingness to partner with the city on some of these response initiatives. Have you partnered with any cities to operate cooling centers, the response centers? Because I know one of the frustrations that I've heard from city staff was when you're having the public or the power shutoffs, people are calling the city asking for help. The city doesn't know where these centers are that you guys have set up. The city obviously has facilities throughout the city where people sort of congregate and flock to. I know that, we had talked about the library as a potential cooling center during the extremely hot periods. That's also perhaps a way to reduce power consumption if you're getting people in one area. Obviously during COVID, that was a little more difficult. But also the relief packets, the blankets you guys were talking about, the medicine bags. It would probably be really beneficial to partner with the city where we either know where those are being handed out or they're being handed out at city facilities? That's something you guys have done in the past? Is that something you'd be willing to do?
Yes, it's something we've done in the past, and yes, it's something we are willing to do. This is where I think partnering with the city that knows the city, with Edison can find the best. And in this case, it'd be something like a community resource center. Making sure it meets all these criteria of having ADA functionality and making sure that it stays open from the times that we typically operate from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., I believe, so that we can provide these services and find the right arrangements to partner with the city so that we're putting them in a location that the city is aware of, that the community is aware of, and that is optimal for citizens to have access to over time. And so
With our elevators fixed, the library
Right.
will be ADA accessible once again. We've committed to get that done by what, April?
And I do know that our annual fire open house is the second Saturday of October every year, and you guys have been invited and have not always been able to come. So that would probably be a key event to attend.
Noted.
You
Thank
talked to our fire chief back there. Mhm.
Anyone else? That's good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Department of Life Safety update and future plans.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Mayor. Morning.
Morning.
It's been a long day. It's been a long day, trust me.
Tell me about it.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, city council members, and members of our community. I'm Eddie Sell, Fire Chief and Agency Director for the Hemet Fire and Life Safety Agency. And tonight we're actually proud to present to everyone an update on the newly formed Department of Life Safety. So with me, I have my members of my command staff. We have Deputy Chief Ryan Webb. We have Acting Chief Building Official Carlos Yado. We have Battalion Chief and Community Risk Reduction Liaison Greg Lloyd. And also in the audience, we do have our Code Manager Lionel Martinez. So it's an honor to present to you a brief update on our reimagined public safety agency. Your support and leadership established our new Fire and Life Safety Agency in November of 2022. This evening, we are focusing on the Department of Life Safety. Our command staff will be assisting with the presentation. So thank you for your time and for listening.
Good evening, everyone. Again, you were instrumental in the implementation of this, so we're very thankful for that. So a brief background to you folks as well as those in the community. Excluding the contracted services, there was no fire prevention formally established for about 10 years. And that prohibited some of the innovative, proactive approaches to fire prevention that we're currently undertaking with the program. The intent was driven by one of the strategic plan initiatives, primarily the quality of life. And that was utilized as a driving force behind the establishment of a prevention program. We also intended to comply with some of the state mandates and state legislation that was implemented, specifically Senate Bill 1205, which was a 2018 legislation that required annual inspections for multifamily dwellings by one of the jurisdiction having authorities, fire agency to conduct those investigations. Some of the research and discovery behind the concept of the Department of Life Safety was driven by another one of the strategic plan initiatives, quality of life. We identified that there were some shared initiatives through both code and building that would allow us to create some innovative strategies to providing the service to the communities. We also reached out to some of our partners in finance and human resources, as well as perusing the industry standards throughout the state and country to determine how they've solved some of these problems. The Department of Life Safety was formally established in November of 2022. Some of the changes that were implemented were combining Department of Life Safety into an umbrella organization that would encompass building and safety, code compliance, and then fire prevention under one household under the auspice of the newly formed Fire and Life Safety Agency. That involved moving select personnel, primarily all of the code enforcement, code compliance personnel into the Covell Building Fire Headquarters, as well as the building and safety folks that would also rotate some time at City Hall to ensure that we are meeting both ends of the spectrum there. We also moved all of the software and hardware from the City Hall building into Covell, computers, desks, et cetera, as well as vehicles that allowed these folks to conduct the day-to-day operation.
Good evening. With fire prevention coming in, and this is part of SB 1205 and the state mandated, it requires us to report annually to our legislative body on the progress as far as with the state, the SB 1205, which deals specifically with multifamily residences and an annual inspection of each of those properties. So for that specifically, since its inception in November, we inspected 82 apartment buildings, and these include just the initial inspections. Most of these, we have to come back and do a return. We find violations, we educate them, and then we come back in a period of time to go in and re-inspect them. So these are just the initial inspections with our 2 full-time fire prevention officers. 82 apartments, 21 schools, 12 hotels and motels. In addition to that, we've responded to 5 business complaints. Our new construction and tenant improvements, it was 125. In that period of time, and then 25 certificate of occupancy inspections, all to total 270 inspections since its inception in November. Just a very interesting part in this picture that you see right here as we're going through, and this is a new construction. New construction happening very quickly. Contractors, as I know some of you may have had received emails or phone calls from, pushing to get things through. When things happen too fast, things happen like this. This is a fire protection system that is not connected to a water source. It was covered with drywall and it was done. Our inspectors found it on a final inspection. They were able to try and look and determine what was the problem, because if you notice, there's a dial at the top. There's no pressure in the system. Well, there's no pressure in the system because there was no water attached. So should a fire have happened in that house without an inspection, they would have had a catastrophic loss. Continuing impact with code enforcement. Since November, 106 code cases created, 511 cases opened, 103 cases brought into compliance. We monitor foreclosure cases. There's 39 of those that are currently being monitored, 9 foreclosure cases created. In addition to all of those regulars, they are, or we as code are responsible for responding to PD and fire callouts. There were 12 of those in that time, 22 commercial corridor enhancements, 14 move along program, and 9 encampments cleaned up. This happens to be one of the mobile home parks, and a lot of things that happen when fire goes out for a fire or something like that. It usually involves a code enforcement call out, which would be typical with what you see here.
Good evening. My name is Carlos Ciato, acting building official, and I'll speak to the building and safety operations. A lot of times we say, you know, when they ask our inspectors or our permit techs, we're busy. It's really nice to see the numbers that really paint the picture of how busy we actually are. Since November, we've had 229 new projects submitted. We had conducted 757 plan reviews that were performed, and we're able to issue 359 permits. With our inspection team, they were able to conduct 1,245 inspections that were able to get through the process. And we had 2 C of Os that were created. One was the Raising Canes, and the other one was new Last Chance Performance Marine that we issued a brand new certificate of occupancy. We also had 16 new commercial permits that were issued, 10 new single family residents that were issued their permits. And we had a total construction valuation of $10.1 million. Notable events, it seems like every week we're tackling something that's very notable and we're very proud of through our collaboration. But one that we had to kind of pick out of the gamut of different projects that we've been tasked with is 1403 East Menlo. This started off with, we had a significant fire that was there that prompted a response from the fire department, which then we had follow up with code enforcement and then also building and safety collaboration to be able to mitigate this issue that we had. I don't know if you can it's really hard to see, but you can see the picture on the left was, I believe it was on the 28th. The picture on the right was the 29th. So by having us under the same roof and when we have issues that come up that involve all of us, it's not, it's literally I can go right next door to the next office over, get my code officer, talk to the fire prevention person, and really pull ourselves together into a conference room and find out a strategy that's going to come up with a reasonable solution to tackling these types of problems. Thank you.
So as you can see, in a short amount of time, we really have come together in a cohesive team, and certainly with the support and leadership that the council put into moving this forward, we're really glad about the progress that we made in a short amount of time. So we're always looking to the future. So in terms of future, we always want to make sure that we're thinking about the strategic plan as our guiding document. We're thinking about internally what we're doing as a public safety agency and with all of our partners. This truly has been a collaborative effort. So I do want to acknowledge the contractors that we have right now as our partners. They've been incredibly helpful during this reorganization. So future plans: restore city staff to positions within the Department of Life Safety, conduct business safety inspections. And I can mention, by the way, that even with our fire prevention officers out there, they have detected things like lapses in business licenses and things like that. So it's truly our goal to make sure that the community is safer, right? Through being progressive and making sure that we're consistent and fair throughout the entire community. Fire investigation program. Right now we have to farm that out to the county. And so having that fire investigation program and having our folks trained on that, this is a very busy fire department that actually sees heavy fire activity. Operational permit issuance and growing shared resources. So we mentioned the stake bed vehicle. So for example, we're trying to be proactive and think about innovative ways to make sure that we can get out there and really just multiply the efforts that we're doing when it comes to community cleanup, working with our law enforcement partners, behavioral health, CityNet, and all the different partners that are really trying to make Hemet a better and safer community. So with that, we're happy to take any follow-up questions for you.
Real quick, how many positions do you have to fill to bring everything up to full capacity for your employment?
So thank you for your question, Mr. Mayor. So, and I just want to draw the distinction between, so now that we are one fire and life safety agency, we essentially have two departments that fall under that organizational structure. We have the Hemet Fire Department and then also the Department of Life Safety. So I'm going to go ahead and defer that to our chief building official for the numbers. It's mostly on the building and safety side right now that we have contract employees. We are currently full on the code enforcement side with the exception of an office specialist 3 position.
So the current vacancies that we have that were opened up probably about, I want to say about May of last year, around this time, was 2 building inspectors. And then we actually have interviews on this week for another permit technician that will backfill an open position. And then we would also have 1 more part-time permit technician that would bring us up to where we were at this time last year. In future, though, part of the planning is also looking to get another code enforcement officer to help us with the workload, as well as a community risk reduction officer part-time, as well as another fire prevention officer, to where we can utilize some of that resource to be able to do all these things in-house, like fire plan review and other more complex fire prevention tasks.
Now, are you a contractor or a permanent employee?
I'm contracted by HR Green.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that. In his position, a chief building official / deputy fire marshal, that job recruitment has actually closed. And we do have some very good candidates that are going to be going through a very competitive assessment center process here in the next few weeks.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, you're welcome.
Anybody? Going once, going twice? All right, well, thank you.
Yeah, please come by. If you haven't been to the Covell building in a while, it used to be a very lonely place. And, you know, there's a lot of activity. Every cubicle is full. And so we encourage visits, and we appreciate all of the support and the collaborative efforts of the entire city. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to move to the consent calendar. All consent calendars will be acted upon simultaneously unless requested by an individual council member for separation consideration. And I have one. Are there any members of the council that would like to pull any consent items for separate consideration?
I would like to pull a few. I have 7G, 7H, 7I, 7J, and 7K. And Mayor, can we take one of them out of order, because there's one, I have to show something on one so that you can compare it to the other.
Yeah. And you said 7B, because that's the one I was going to pull also.
No, 7G.
Oh, G, okay.
GHIJK.
Anyone else? Yeah, and then I'm going to pull 7B. And I have a motion to approve the items or remaining items, and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve all of the items that were not pulled.
I'll second that.
Motion by Councilmember Krupa, second by Councilmember Peterson. Council, please cast your vote. That's to approve the consent calendar with the exceptions of items B, G, H, I, J, and K for separate consideration. And just waiting for Mayor Males, your vote.
Yes, sir.
If you could do a roll cast vote.
Your vote here.
Can you enter your vote?
Oh.
That motion passes 5-0 to approve those consent calendar. First item is 7B. You had questions, Mayor?
Yes. My question, I guess, is explain to me what this is all about. Is this stuff completed, or is it not completed?
So thank you, Mayor, for your questions, Honorable Mayor, council members. This is a standard item that the city council and I should back up. Staff reviews every 2 years. They review the conflict of interest code biannually to determine basically the list of filers who need to file under the Political Reform Act. And so we're taking this as a notice of directing staff to review the conflict of interest code. And essentially what we're doing is adding, renaming, or deleting previous designated positions. And as you just received a agency report from our new agency, there are new positions and amendments that are going to be made to our current list. And so essentially what you're approving tonight is just to direct staff to review the conflict of interest code.
Okay.
Correct.
So Mayor, certain staff members, because of their position within the agency, have a lot of control over how the agency spends its money. And so those employees are required to file certain conflict of interest disclosures that are on file with the city. But because we create new positions, we modify positions every 2 years, city staff is required to go through all the list of positions and make sure that everyone is classified appropriately.
Okay, great, perfect. So we can go ahead and vote on this, or?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
My pleasure.
I just needed an explanation. I was just unsure about it, so.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve 7B.
Can I second that? I'll second.
Council, please cast your votes. I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Lowenthal, second by Mayor Males. That motion passes 5-0. Next item is 7G.
Okay, and if we could take item 7J next. I just need to show the difference of the two. So that's page 383. And make sure it's page 383 in your packet, and it's actually like 49 of 51 in that packet. So all the items that I pulled are list of are, I believe, an agreement that we have with DR Horton to complete certain items in a development. Is that correct? Did you
Yes.
say that? So on my way here, I drove through Citrus Point, sore subject for some people, but my district includes Citrus Point, and in Citrus Point, there are items that have not been finished by DR Horton's development. They have left, they have packed up, they have taken their things, and they have not completed. There are not stop signs, there are not street markings. There's some questionable items that it was dark, so I'm not going to call it on it, but I believe that these agreements that we're approving are legal lists of items that must be approved by us, and these are in writing, right? And so this one that I'm bringing up here, page 49 of 51, is an example of what I would call a list of public improvements. This list is actually missing out of the other items that I pulled. And so unless you can show me that list, I can't approve them, because I keep getting complaints on Citrus Point, and I can't, as a council member, go out there and finish putting up stop signs. So I'm not sure how you think I'm supposed to approve this item and defend the behavior of this developer in this. I mean, I believe it was when Mayor Lilienthal was the mayor, we met with this group and they told us it was just going to be a matter of months. And I've heard all kinds of goofy excuses, but they are that goofy. So maybe you can explain.
Let me make sure I understand the question. We're on item 7G.
I'm showing J first because on 49 of 51, it is a list of public improvements, as it probably should be.
So on
listed.
J, it was a smaller commercial parcel map that was done. The other ones are full-size track maps. So there's a lot more improvements to list. So instead of listing the improvements, there's plans referenced. And those plans include all of the public improvements that they're required to make. And those
So
are like
I
several
can see
sheets.
how you can understand that, but I don't do this every day. And my point is, with the turnover that we have in our city, I can see how these developments just don't get finished because there's a new guy and there's a new guy and there's a new guy, and the customers that live out there, our residents, are still frustrated with that Citrus Point development.
I understand that. Maybe we could explain that somewhere in the agreement a little better. The numbers actually reference like a track it number. So there's actual plans that are associated with those numbers.
I hear good things, but I'm just saying I don't see them.
That's the difference between the J and the other three for Exhibit B.
Do you know how we can hold them accountable?
Well, in the case of Citrus Point, the city has not accepted the tract for maintenance or anything, and we'd have to bring that to council in order to accept it.
And-
So what
and-
about the missing stop signs and the children going to school through those areas?
Had discussions and somehow, the plans that were approved, I guess there was a transfer in ownership. And the streets were already there, so there was no signing and striping plan that was included with DR Horton. I am requesting they still put those in. They are resisting a little bit, but that's an ongoing conversation, and I wouldn't recommend accepting the tract until they're in.
Okay, and then I did notice on the last warrant register, like there was quite a bit of money refunded back to DR Horton. And I would be cautious to give them anything since they're not finishing their job.
I'm not sure what that was for. It's probably some sort of a deposit that they did finish everything that they needed to finish.
I'll
But I'm
send you
not-
a picture of it.
Can we, city attorney, can we hold deposits like that if they don't?
Well, I am a little worried we're a little off track. I don't think Citrus Point is necessarily on the agenda today, although I understand why the council.
DR Horton is on the agenda.
Why the council member brought it up, concerns about past performance on similar agreements. So obviously ongoing conversation about Citrus Point. I can tell you generally how maybe a little background on what subdivision improvement agreements are might be a little bit helpful. When the city authorizes the subdivision of land under the Subdivision Map Act, which is a state law and city ordinance, we require certain improvements be made to the land. So you have to build streets, you have to build sidewalks, you have to build gutter, you have to do striping and stop signs, you have to do landscaping along certain areas. And under the Subdivision Map Act, those improvements could be required before the subdivision goes through, but oftentimes it's very difficult to achieve financially for anyone developing land. So they enter into these subdivision improvement agreements where they agree to do certain improvements. If they fail to follow through on those, we do have bonds that are issued in favor of the city for the amount of those improvements. So the city could require the insurance company that issued those bonds to either pay the city and we'll go finish the improvements, or more likely, the insurance company will contract with contractors and go and have them finished if the party is in breach. It sounds like with Citrus Point, there's an issue with, and I guess this goes to Councilmember Meyer's point, whether or not those specific improvements that you're talking about were listed as improvements that they were required to build. And so I think it's very wise to pay attention to the list of improvements that we are requiring. We put the references to the plans, frankly, out of expedience. That's where all of the improvements are listed. If we were to list them off, I think it would be easier for the council to see what improvements are being required. I do hesitate, simply as someone who pushes a lot of paper, that there will be errors that crop up between the plans and the agreements that come in. I'm just speaking frankly.
Right, but to your point, is this document not supposed to bring clarity and less confusion?
I think it does, and I see your point. Referencing the plans makes the document easier for city staff to process and easier for city staff to go and find what improvements are required to be built. But when you're on the dais as a city council member, you don't have the plans in front of you, right? They're not in the backup. They're huge Mylar plans. So I understand it's difficult for you to say, well, what improvements are.
Well, it's difficult for DR Horton because they can't get it.
Well, they develop the plans.
But if they develop the plans and they can't follow them and we don't have them in writing in front of us, how can I confront them on it?
I see your point. And so I think there's probably a couple of options to address that issue. I think perhaps, I like referencing the plans in the agreement itself. That makes it very clear for us on an enforceability standpoint. Perhaps for staff reports going forward, I know we've had some feedback on how some staff reports are presented, such as putting cross streets when we're talking about the creation of districts or other maps. Perhaps in the staff report, we can list the major improvements that are being done. And that way the council members, when you're looking at the staff report, you know what types of improvements that you are approving as part of this agreement without necessarily having to go through and list them out in the agreement itself.
As long as we put a little asterisk in there that these don't include all of them. These are just a,
The summary of the
yes,
major improvements that are.
because I can see somebody trying to pull a fast one. We've
And,
had it
you know,
plenty of times.
like I said, we have the plans. I mean, it's not that difficult to put a description there. You know, we're doing these streets, we're doing sidewalks, gutters on these streets, we're putting in these traffic control devices, things like that. Not to create more work for the Public Works Department, but I did, sorry. But that might be more effective than listing it out when we're talking about these massive tracks, because if we were to list it out, I mean, it would be dozens and dozens of pages long. And frankly, I don't know if it'd be any more comprehensible than it is now.
Right, but to the point of it being a legal document and something that we hang our hat on, and we require them to, you know, get a bond over.
Right. And that's why I think referencing the plans from a legal standpoint is effective, but I agree it's not incredibly transparent for the council in this context. So maybe we can address it on the staff report side. And then I did have one other note. I did want to point out, and I think the Councilmember Myers knows this, the 7J is not an approval of a subdivision improvement agreement. This is the end of that process. So like we said, we enter into the subdivision improvement agreement to get the improvements built. And then when it's done, it comes back to the city council to acknowledge that the improvements have been done and to release those bonds that I talked about. And one of the conversations that Public Works has been having, especially since Noah got here, is ensuring that we are adequately inspecting those improvements to make sure that they are to city specs, and then making sure that we have the paperwork on file that we have accepted. So that's why this is actually here. This is not something I think that historically the city of Hemet has been all that great at right now.
I would agree. I've seen several that have been released without this.
And I
process.
just wanted to use this as an example because this was the only one that showed.
No, I think that I totally, I get it. I was hoping to point out that 7J, this item where the city council is approving the improvements that have gone in and accepting them formally, has not been something that the city has been all that. You were talking about, you know, new person, and not having the follow through. This has not been something historically that the city's been great at. And, you know, without going into all the details, we have had issues with trip and falls on sidewalks. Who's responsible for it? Is it still the developer, or did the city accept it? And so I really appreciate Noah coming forward and bringing these things forward to the city council so that we have very clear paperwork on when those improvements become the city's responsibility, and giving us authority to release the bonds.
Just I might add that this is one that should have probably been released a couple of years ago.
Right. Nice. No, now the last one is 7K. And Noah, maybe you could explain this to me. This looks like, when you read the analysis on this, it looks like the contractor messed up on something that they were doing, and then it ends up costing us more. That's just what it looks like to me.
I wish it was the contractor's fault. Unfortunately, it's when we've removed the street, all the pavement, and we've get into the subgrade, there's a process that we have in the contract. They're supposed to rip 6 inches underneath the subgrade, process it, recompact it. And in doing that process, we've been unable to get compaction. During that process, they've been, using vibra rollers and whatnot, and it's actually bringing too much moisture up. And so it's creating a phenomenon that's called pumping. So it's almost like a waterbed. If you push down in one area, it lifts up in another. And so there's been a couple different remediation efforts we've made through a geotechnical consultant's recommendation, and it's not cheap.
Can I add a couple things to what Noah just said? We ran into the same situation when with building the library, and had to go down probably another 15 feet deeper than what we had estimated, or what they had estimated. And it also happened with the rebuilding of Hemet Elementary. So we have a subsidence problem in our valley. Those are all I have.
Motion on the balance of these agenda items. Anyone?
I'll make a motion to approve the items that were pulled and not approved before.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Krupa, second by Mayor Pro Tem Lowenthal. Council, please cast your votes, and that's for items 7G, H, I, J, and K. That motion passes 4-1. Councilmember Meyer voting no.
Next, we will move into our discussion action items. We'll move into our discussion action. May we have a report from staff on the first report, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, my report is brief. This is consideration of a delegate, representative, and alternate for the Southern California Association of Governments 2023 General Assembly meeting that will be held on May 4th through 5th, 2023. And so essentially it's to discuss possible policy matters to be brought to the General Assembly. And staff is, I'm looking for a recommendation for a delegate, representative, and alternate for the General Assembly meeting.
Do I have any volunteers?
Well, I will be going since
Right, you will.
y'all voted that I would be the regional representative for the 5 cities. So I will be there, but I don't have to be the delegate.
Oh,
I will be if you
you will be.
want to
No, what we
do
just
that.
voted you in.
Not necessarily, but we definitely, I am willing to do that. And then we will appoint an alternate who should also attend this conference. And they're good conferences and it's free for council members. So all of us should have the ability to go.
Okay, so do I have a volunteer for an alternate?
I'll be an alternate.
You will? Okay, Malcolm Lilienthal will be an alternate.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll
second.
Motion was by Councilmember Group.
Carly made the motion, right? Carly made the motion.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Council, please cast your votes. A motion by Councilmember Meyer, second by Mayor Males, excuse me. That motion passes 5-0.
Mayor, can I make a recommendation that the city council consider item 8C prior to item 8B? And the reason for that is 8C is a proposed change to the municipal code related to the undergrounding of utilities. 8B is a request for a waiver of undergrounding of utilities.
Definitely.
If the council decides to move forward on 8C, although that ordinance would not be in effect for 30 days after the second reading, if this project had come forward, it would be exempt. And so that might make the discussion and decision on 8B relatively simple for the
Yeah,
council.
let's move forward on that. So we will open up with 8C. Any discussion?
Yes, so Noah, were you planning on giving a report? Okay, I can give a report on the ordinance. So as requested, or I guess not requested, directed by the city council, city staff has reviewed section 82-172 of the Hemet Municipal Code related to the undergrounding of utility lines. You know, we've had a pretty robust internal discussion. My opening offer was to repeal the section in its entirety. However, there are certainly public benefits to requiring the undergrounding of utilities for certain development projects within the city. In reviewing the previous requests for waivers that had come forward in the past couple of years, it was readily apparent what the common theme was. The common theme was individuals attempting to develop or redevelop infill parcels within the city of Hemet, people doing the exact thing that the city wants them to do, which is to take areas of the city that have become somewhat economically disadvantaged and spend their own money bringing a building back to life and bringing business back into the city of Hemet. And every single time those people come to the city council and the council says, of course, we're going to waive the fees. It doesn't make sense to burden someone who's doing what the city wants them to do. Furthermore, these internal areas of the city already have existing above ground power lines. They're going to have it to the left. They're going to have it to the right. So great, 50 feet of frontage in a neighborhood gets underground, or 100 feet of frontage in front of this one property. It doesn't really make a big difference for the city as a whole. And, you know, the last thing is, generally speaking, these type of projects, the budget's usually pretty tight. And so every time it's come before the council has said, of course, we're gonna waive that. So the changes that we're proposing to be made, and I just want to say that I really appreciate the input from Noah on this. I think we've come up with a good solution here. We've added an exemption for infill development. So if you're under a certain lot size, if you have a certain under a certain amount of frontage, you're either exempt from the ordinance entirely, or you fit within the exception. That, as written, this would have exempted all the projects that have come forward with a waiver and have been successfully approved by the city council. That should be a pretty big benefit to the business owners who are looking to do these projects. Sorry to the business owners who are stuck in the process. But hopefully in the future, that will make things easier. Lastly, we have defined what happens, what is undue financial hardship and what the result of that is, because that wasn't defined in the previous code. The last thing is, because we have created this relatively broad exception, which targets every single waiver hearing that we've had thus far, we've taken out the appeals to the city council. So this should cover all the circumstances that we have in mind. Where are they still going to need to do undergrounding? Primarily on the outskirts as development leaves the city center, in areas where we're talking large projects, we're talking projects on the outskirts. Those projects are going to need to underground. So the new projects on the outskirts of the city, you're not going to see overhead power lines under the ordinance, or you shouldn't. Where you will continue to see them, and where the exceptions will be are on the interior core. So I hope that explanation was adequate. And
I have a question for you. Would it be helpful to ask the Formicas if it would be helpful to pass this anyways, or is 30 days going to just be another jam?
I think my anticipation here was that the council, if you like this ordinance, you can do first reading of the ordinance. It's going to come back for second reading, and then it'll go into effect 30 days later. This does not have to delay their application. My assumption is you could say, okay, we're changing the ordinance. It would have exempted their property anyway. And then the hearing on the waiver can be relatively short, because you've already decided that that circumstance does not warrant the payment of the underground utility fee.
If I can ask a question on the new locations for development, and you're saying undergrounding. If the developer chooses to not underground because of cost, do they still have to pay a fee?
Yes.
And then what is that fee?
That is a fee set by council. So the city council, I believe it is probably per linear foot of frontage.
Correct.
I don't have the fee schedule in front of me, but that is something that the city council can change by resolution in the future. If the council is getting feedback that this in lieu fee is simply excessive, we don't have to grant waivers, to every person who comes in and says it's too much. The city council can cross the board, change the fee. And generally speaking, it's in line with the city's strategic goals and the council's objectives. We're really trying to move away from this, case by case analysis. We're trying to have certainty for people who are looking to develop. They know what the rules are. They know what the costs are going to be. They don't think, oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to go to a hearing. Maybe I get it, maybe I don't. So if the council wants to review the fee, the council can certainly direct that if you're getting feedback that it's too excessive. But that's not something we charge all sorts of fees.
Yes, we do.
And as anyone who's developed property has learned, we don't waive any of them. This was unusual in the sense that it was one of these that you could be waived. But I think that the better thing would be for the council to set it at an appropriate level if it was too high.
Thank you.
One quick question. I think it was a Holiday Inn that wanted to build out here in Florida.
It was a hotel. I don't remember.
Hotel, but did we waive their underground
did.
fees? We did. Okay. So
Same reason.
yeah.
Again,
Okay.
it's gonna be above ground to the left of them, above ground to the right of them. It's super expensive to underground it under their property. What was the point? And they're bringing a tax generating business into an infill lot, which is something the council wants done.
So should we get a motion? Do I have a motion on 8C?
I'll move approval on 8B.
I get a second?
I'll second it.
Councilmember, was that on 8B or 8C?
I'm sorry, 8C.
You want to do both at the same time.
Could I do both at the
There's
same
nothing
time? I'd like
stopping
to move approval of 8B and 8C.
I love that.
I second it.
There you go.
Both of them.
It's getting late.
Motion by Councilmember Krupa, second by Councilmember Peterson. Council, please cast your votes.
Oops, got to vote first.
That motion passes 5-0 to approve items 8B and 8C.
Okay. Huh?
No, I guess you are right here. Yeah.
Can we get a report from staff on the next item, please, of 8D?
Yeah, if you recall, this is recommended by the mayor, the proclamation to be issued on behalf of the city of Hemet at the Pastor of San Jacinto Valley Support Israel event being held on February 12th. This is actually a proclamation celebrating the 75th anniversary of Israel's independence. So this proclamation is requested by you, Mayor, to be presented.
Well, it won't be presented here, but
No, it'll be presented February 12th at the San Jacinto Valley Support Israel event.
And the reason for that, Mayor, was, remember, we did have a pretty robust discussion at the city council about proclamations and who can approve proclamations and what proclamations need to come to
Right.
council. And this
Okay.
one was not something the council had ever done before, so.
and I'd like to correct that. It wasn't me because Carly called Brenda and requested it because I had forgot to. But so it was requested by Carly Meyer, our council member.
Okay, noted.
Noted. Okay, so thank you for the presentation. Are there any comments from council on this item?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Myers, second by Mayor Pro Tem Lowenthal. Council, please cast your votes.
Oh.
That motion passes 5-0.
Moving on, can we get a report from staff on the next item on 8E, please?
Yeah, this is a strategic plan update. We'll get the slide going, PowerPoint going right now, but just some history. As you know, and I think this coincides with our program budgeting. And you're wondering, why are we bringing this forward? Because we haven't done it in the past. We looked at the strategic plan and things that we have accomplished and wanted to make sure that you're aware, as well as our community, what we're doing and how we're progressing. Now, this may be something that the council would like to see at mid-year, because it's through the mid-year that we're talking about certain things that we've accomplished, things that we still want to accomplish, which coincides with our strategic goal priorities, and our program budgeting. Keeping that in mind, this is probably something the council would like to see also during work study or providing information when we come to our new fiscal year budget. Because things change. This is a living document, and we know that things will change and we're moving different directions. And what's working, when I discuss program budgeting, some things aren't working and we're stalled where we have to take a different route or navigate through different ways of getting certain things completed. So on January 29th, as you know, this is when the council came together in a special meeting to discuss priorities for the city council. I think that meeting was the basis of where we are today, moving forward with these directions directly related to our strategic goal priorities. On February 26th, the city council finalized our goals with the city. That was after a couple more meetings. And then on July 1st, 2022, we implemented our strategic plan with our program-based budgeting, which was new to us, new to all staff members. We came from a line item budgeting to this program-based budgeting, which was a lot different. And I'm one to say at first, I didn't like it. But what I did enjoy about this, it coincides with our strategic plan. I love goals and objectives, and this keeps the focus. And I think I mentioned this before, coming on as an acting city manager in the interim, it really helped me move forward because I knew exactly what all the departments had within their programs to move forward. So with the help of putting this together, kind of helped us move forward in the meantime as an interim position. Our 5 strategic priorities is quality of life, economic opportunity, community engagement, partnership and collaboration, and organizational effectiveness. Now, each of our action items, which are within our program budget, focuses on one of these priorities. And I'll discuss a little bit of that as we move on through our PowerPoint. Our program-based budgeting, what's the difference between that and our line item budgeting and how we came this and how it integrates with our strategic plan is our program-based budgeting. Each department has several programs. As an explanation, the police department has 9 programs, and with each program, I decide exactly my salary and benefits, my maintenance and operations, all the things that I need within each program. And each program is focused to meet one of those strategic priorities. So I'm able to evaluate and see how we're moving forward. Each program has action items. Within those action items, we deliver those objectives, and they're all measured. Examples are community engagement that's going out in the community, like Coffee with a Cop. And I have a priority of making, 1 every 2 months. So 6 a year. If I completed that program and action item, or at least that action item is completed. Now those things continue to grow. Keep in mind, this was brand new in 2022. And it's a learning experience for all the department heads as we move forward. And I could see that next year I could probably up those meetings. Like I've already completed those action items within my program, but I'm continuing to move forward. I still have a Coffee with a Cop next month, just continue that engagement, just to better explain what we do. And you could tell by where we're at with each strategic plan update in the background. Now, if you look at the circular status, you look at the blue is our completed action items within our program budget. And this is all the programs within the city with each department. So we are 53.26% completed. The yellow is some disruption that we're still working on. There's, things we have to navigate differently. And the green is what we're on track for. So if you look at what looks like a speedometer to your right, or that's our progress, 76%. Gives you a better idea in how we're moving forward. I should speed it up. It's getting kind of late. But these are good accomplishments that we've done, and I've just touched it. I'll touch on a few. Is being removed from the state auditor's watch list. That was one of our accomplishments. As I moved down, I talked about the host 3 coffee or pizza with a copy events, providing service Monday through Friday. That's one of them that we completed. That's opening the city hall Monday through Friday, hosting quarterly employee appreciation jobs, established fire engineer number 5, explore use of online budget modules and post resolutions and public documents online. These are things that we have accomplished. Now, it doesn't mean that we're not continuing to improve on things. There's always room for improvement. So as we evaluate this, and I think this would be a good time when we're discussing our budget for the next fiscal year, is what the council wants to see, what we need to improve, because things change, evolve, and we can make better progress. Okay, to be completed. These are things that we're still working on, and exploring partnership with AMR, the fire department, and Department of Life Safety is working on those avenues. Finish the CIP ARPA projects budgeted for the current fiscal year, which is, I know, on the forefront of what the council wants to see us complete these ARPA projects. Another one is continue the ERP replacement for RFP process. Another one is implement the Department of Life and Safety. I know there was a presentation tonight, but obviously they're still moving forward to fulfill some positions and make sure that we're going full force ahead. Some things that we added at mid-year because we thought this was important to add as we move forward, because we have a lot of these action items within our program budget that are completed. And some things I'll talk about is address public safety infrastructure needs at city facilities. This is something for the next 6 months we're going to look at. Improve staff responsiveness to enhance customer service at the front counter, emails, and phone calls. Reduce blight and homelessness in business districts with education. Education is a part of this one. And things could become more specific as we go forward, because like I said, this is trial and error as we started this. So we're learning a lot as we move forward, but now we're becoming more specific where we really need to target certain things that become important. And I'm sure it's important for the staff, and it's important for council. It's important for our residents. Promote adult literacy and learning through library programs. Continue implementing technology and software to reduce crimes, provide information to the public. So just a couple things that we've included, additions for the next 6 months. Obviously, like I said, this is a living document. It's a strategic plan, which it should be. And these are things I'm sure the council will be discussing as we move forward towards the direction of council. That being said, if you have any questions, I will answer them.
On some of those items where you said there are some delays, is there anything the council is doing to support you guys on eliminating those setbacks or delays?
Now, most of them are things for control, but I think that those are things we have to sit back at the table and decide how we're going to maneuver that, or if there's a different avenue to accomplish those specific action items.
Question on the improved education and promotion of anti-trespass with business and property owners. Is that the form you're talking about to fill out so they homeless people can be removed when the owner's not there? Or what is that?
Well, we have that's just what we want to do is educate, bring that more to, as we talked about pamphlets. So we want to bring more education to our business owners. And an example is why I brought this as a new action item is we had this discussion where we had a business meeting, and we were talking to business owners that have been here for many years, but yet had no idea that we had these trespass letters that we can place on file. So my goal is to educate them more, even our current businesses as well as our new businesses within the next 6 months. And that's one of my action items that I can improve upon, or the city can improve upon, so our businesses know what we have to offer. That being said, that's going to be one of the pamphlets that we hand out to new businesses and our current businesses, so they know exactly all the contacts, all the information that's necessary, and what the city and each department in the city can provide to these businesses.
And even education as far as environmental. Some people don't know that they need to shut their Wi-Fi off every night. So they don't know why they have a group of homeless people out in front of their business all night because they're getting free Wi-Fi and covering electrical outlets. Yeah, there's lots of items like that that we were able to help businesses with, and water spigots. Yeah.
So hopefully this helped out on, I think it's something that, mid-year is a good time and something we could probably bring forward with the mid-year budget, probably after it's provided. So you know which direction, what we've completed, as well as our community. We have Invisio, which is on our webpage where the community can actually monitor where we're at as well. But sometimes this is better just to explain how we are doing moving forward.
I think this has been very helpful. And I think that community appreciates having it in their face to be able to keep us accountable. So it helps with transparency too. So thank you. You guys are great.
Any other questions? No. Thank you for your presentation. Can I get a motion? Do we need a motion on this one? Yeah. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the goals set therein for the remainder of the fiscal year.
Before I second it, can you, the Invisio website is down. It's been down for quite some time. So when people go to click on it, it comes up with like an oops. So that citizens, right now we don't have access to it.
Okay, I'll look into it because we're actually been working with Invisio to update all the action items for actually this reason. So, and I think sometimes we maybe have to do a better job of checking the view of our community rather than the internal view, because there's an external and internal. So unless somebody says something, I wasn't aware of it.
Who oversees that? Do we have anyone that?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, shame on you. No, no. Okay.
Second.
So you second?
I have a motion by Councilmember Peterson, second by Mayor Pro Tem Lowenthal. Council, please cast your votes. That motion passes 5-0.
We will now move on to city council and staff reports. Councilmember Linda Krupa, you're up.
Glasses on so I can see. Okay, library. We had a trustees meeting last Friday, and I think we still have, well, I know we still have a vacancy, and Mr. City Clerk, I think it's my vacancy. So I will bring you who I want to nominate for that position and see who else has signed up and volunteered for that position. We also have landscape improvements and upgrading going on at the front of the library this week. Trees have been trimmed. Some of the dead plantings have been taken out and will be replaced. And at the last trustees meeting, they unanimously approved the updated usage items for the small conference room downstairs. League of California Cities Policy Committee meetings are Thursday and Friday. I have been appointed to the Transportation, Communication, and Public Works Policy Committee, and we will have a Zoom meeting Friday from 10 till 2. RCTC, Riverside County Transportation Commission, at the that was at Committee for Western Projects. We updated some of the contracts for Stantec on the 7191 interchange over west of Corona. and they've run into some environmental hazards over there with endangered species land. So parts of the EIR are going to have to be looked at to see how we can proceed with that interchange upgrade. And just as an announcement, if anybody's going to Orange County or LA on the 91 this weekend, don't. There's a 55-hour closure, again, going through Corona to correct some of the issues that have transpired there. And next week, RCTC will be having their annual retreat where we will go through the things that were accomplished this last year and prioritize those things that we will be going after for next year. Riverside Transit Agency, we have our board meeting on Thursday. And the only other thing that was really interesting to do, it was with SCAG last week. And Jan Harnig from Palm Desert is the chair of SCAG, which is a 6-county association of governments. And she arranged to have tours of transportation related facilities in our area of Riverside County. So RTA provided a bus, and about 14 of us, I believe, toured the Vine Street Mobility Hub that is going in Riverside, right adjacent to Metrolink station. And we were supposed to go to Colton to tour the train yard over there, but because of all the rains, everybody was out inspecting tracks. So we didn't go there, but we did go to CARB, the California Air Resources Board, the new building that's in Riverside near UCR. Wow. That was a major accomplishment for Riverside County to get that, because it wasn't supposed to come here. They wanted to go someplace else. And there was a great lobbying effort to say, you want to have accurate data on air quality, come to Riverside County. So they built this wonderful facility up there, and we got a tour of all of it. And they test engines and air quality, outside air quality, just in the region, and different, like have small pots of air testing equipment all over. But in the facility themselves, they test all of the emissions of engines going as small as, the weed blowers that we can't use anymore. We have to have electric, and all the way up to the 18-wheelers, the huge trucks. And the facilities there, I mean, it's just amazing. They bring the vehicles in and kind of run them onto like a treadmill and do all the diagnostics and figure out who's good, good and bad emissions, and the microscopic emissions that come out. Phenomenal. If you get a chance to go up and test it, go through it. We were just blown away with the technology. But also in what they do, because electric vehicles, of course, are being pushed. They test the amount of emissions from electric vehicles. Now, it's not from the electric vehicle themselves, but from the amount of energy they have to produce coming from the grid. So the grid is producing bad air quality, a lot of emissions to get it there. So is the car, I mean, it's a trade-off. It really is. And they're coming up with some really interesting things. And it's like, yeah, well, then when the grid goes down, how do you charge your car? I'm going to stay with my gas engine. But it was fascinating. So if opportunity comes up to take a tour of CARB in Riverside, I urge you to do it, because it's really mind-boggling and eye-opening all at the same time. And that's all I have.
Go ahead, Jackie.
I had the pleasure of going to my first committee meeting this last week. January 16th, last Monday, I went to the Ramona Bowl Board of Directors meeting. And I'd first like to say I had the pleasure of attending the President's Gala fundraiser this last Saturday at the library. Very, very nice. And I just want to congratulate all the board members and all their volunteers and sponsors. What an event. It was spectacular. It was really, really nice. So thank you, everybody. And at the meeting, I learned so much and I found it fascinating. I mean, yes, we're doing a lot more this year because it's the 100th probably, but I know they do this every year basically. And it's just going to be extra special, as Mr. Terry there said. But some of the things they're trying to do is acquire a new utility vehicle, as their old golf cart is beyond repair. They said it's been repaired so many times. So they're trying to research getting a utility vehicle for Ramona Bowl. And they're also hoping to acquire a newer trolley. So those are two things that they'll be working on. And I want everybody to know that on March 4th, the Ramona Hillside Players will present the play Glass Menagerie. And a portion of the proceeds will benefit Ramona Bowl pageant. And they'll have refreshments and raffle prizes, and the admission price is $25. It's a great little theater. I've been there before, and this benefits the pageant, so I highly encourage everybody to go. And there will be a VIP reception for electeds on the second Saturday performance, which is May 29th. And they will invite all council members and other electeds from Southern California to come for the reception and performance. And along with that, they will also have a service day for the Kiwanis, Lions, and Rotary clubs. And they will have the student days once again. And more info will follow on all of this. And we are going to have a great year. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't have any items on here to update. I do have one for the homeless outreach. It's not till later, so if you want me to do it now, I can do it now, but it's quick. All right, tomorrow morning, if you would like to be involved in the point in time count, be here at 5 a.m. to go count homeless people in our region. There will be a group of volunteers meeting here at 5 in the morning, so that is tomorrow.
Okay, so I'm sitting on for League of Cities, I'm sitting on the Public Safety Policy Committee. And they're going to be talking about the state budget allocations. The proposal includes an additional 93 million in opioid settlement funds over 4 years beginning in 2023. To 2024 to support youth and fentanyl focused investments for the Department of Health. And so what they're looking at is 79 million for the first responders. I don't know what that drug is called that they use when they overdose. It starts with an N.
There's like fentanyl and Narcan. Oh,
so they're gonna have like something where they distribute it. And then they're also going to propose 10 million for grants to increase local efforts in education, testing, recovery, and this is for Assembly Bill 2365. And then they're gonna 4 million to support innovative approaches to make fentanyl test strips and it's like NALOXONE, that more available for people. And then they're going to do another 3.5 million in ongoing proposition. So 98 funds to provide all middle school and high school sites with at least 2 doses of that for or another medication to reverse an opioid overdose on campus. As a therapist, it's kind of unfortunate to hear my middle schoolers talking about the different drugs that are being used in middle school. There's a lot of things happening. You got AB 18, that's controlled substances. So this measure will require a person who's guilty of selling fentanyl, peyote, and various other opiates and narcotics to receive a written advisory of the danger of manufacturing or distributing of all the controlled substances. And if a person dies as a result, the manufacturer or distributor can be charged with voluntary manslaughter or murder. AB 19 talks about pupil health. So that one is going to require each individual public school operated by a school district, county office of education, and charter school to maintain at least 2 doses of that Narcan on hand. AB 24 for emergency response opioid antagonist kits. You got AB 33 for the fentanyl task force, and you got SB 10. This is pupil health again. This one's going to add a new requirement for training programs for schools. This is what we're talking about today. For school staff on use of emergency opioid antagonists to treat an opioid overdose within the recommended training following specific standards. And this will begin July 2024. And then you have SB 13. So the measure requires a person who is guilty of selling fentanyl and all the other ones. They'll be charged with voluntary manslaughter or murder. SB 19 for anti-fentanyl abuse task force. And then you have SB 44 control. So these are some of the things that we're going to go over. And so Valentine's Day, I'll probably have more information on some of those things. And then as far as community action partnership, they reported on their last quarter that they reinvested $5 million back into the Riverside County as a whole, with their LI HEAP utility assistance. So they did 3.4 million there, 4,000 households, $332,212 for gas assistance, $2,000 for propane assistance, and then $3 million in helping with electric bills. And then for water, they did 1 million, and that ended up being 1,580 households. And then they did some things within their weatherization program where they were able to help out with like $436,000. That included patching up people's stucco. They were able to help 16 mobile homes, 62 households, 50 owners of houses through this program. So this program is their idea is to reduce poverty, but through all of this reinvesting of these funds that are taken in taxes and stuff like that to help out lower income people so they don't fall, because if one of your bills loses, that can even lead to homelessness and things like that. Because if your house gets boarded up or you get code comes in and because something wasn't fixed, then you get displaced. So this is a pretty cool program that they got going on. That's all I have for today.
Thank you, sir. I'm just going to talk about the skate park. I guess Noah got 3 bids in, and the skate park is going to be starting construction hopefully in the near future. It's supposed to be in by 2025 and running and ready to go. I have a 3-year-old grandson right now. He should be 5 by the time that's built, and he rides an electric motorcycle right now. Crazy. I mean, at 3, I don't even think I was walking, but looking forward to it. So if we can move on to our ad hoc committee reports. Council Protocol Ad Hoc Committee, Peterson, Krupa.
Yes,
Councilmembers?
City Attorney sent Jackie and I the latest revision today, so we will be setting up a meeting for the 3 of us to go over and talk more about the protocols and bring them back to council so they can be approved. And if I could just jump down to the Caltrans Liaison Ad Hoc Committee, which Jackie and I are also on. We will set a meeting with Noah so that we all are on the same page before we meet with Caltrans the next time. That's it.
All right. Councilmember Peterson, you want to? Yeah, okay. And Vision and Mission Ad Hoc Committee, council members Lilienthal and Meyer. And if you want to jump to the other ones,
we'll just wait for your direction on that one. On the Vision and Mission Ad Hoc, we'll just wait for your direction when you're ready for us to start something.
Okay.
And because really that's what that's for, I think.
I don't have anything.
You don't have anything on homeless outreach at all?
She said.
Okay. Business outreach ad hoc, we're gonna try to get a meeting together, after the city manager comes in or before? On the business ad hoc.
Your decision, we could get one going before, but I think it'd be possibly better wait till after February 21st.
Okay, then if you want, we can wait. The meeting I have tomorrow will give us the information also on what we're gonna do.
Yeah, I have a folder, so I'll be able to hand it off to him gladly.
Oh, great,
So,
okay. Thank you. Caltrans, you already talked to CDBG ad hoc, that's Mills and Lilienthal. We're waiting for Veronica to give us some information on that. Banner program, anything on that?
Could we put out some additional social media blasts on the banner program? I know there are a lot of people who have re-signed up that have active duty people in their families, but if we could get that going again so the school district knows how many they should print up and get new photographs and things like that of those who have been up for a long time. So just get it out on social media and contact the families that have had banners up prior. That would, and then we'll see how many we get. Hopefully we get more this time.
will do.
Okay. And Mayor, could I make one comment?
Yes.
That I didn't make back on the agenda, and that was on the, it has to do with the strategic plan update because part of it was in budgeting. And I know last meeting, we had a budget update, mid-year budget update, and I asked a couple questions of the finance director regarding the dollar amount on grants that were in the planning department and also numbers from the water department. And if you want to find out exactly what it was, he answered my questions completely, and it was about carryovers from prior years on the planning department grants. And I would just like to thank Paul for taking, as he called it, a deep dive into what it was and coming up with the answers to explain the numbers that were actually in that report and the reasons why they were happening. So just wanted to get that out, that those questions were answered, and Paul did an excellent job.
Paul? Okay, on the Veteran Memorial ad hoc, I'd like to get together with you as soon as possible. When you have some time, if you can let me know when we can meet. I have some names also and some of the veterans that have passed from our post, so, okay, thank you. We will now move on to city manager report.
Nothing to report. It was mentioned the point in time count, so that was it.
Do any members of city council have any requests for future agenda items?
Yes. What are we going to do about a rent stabilization ordinance to help the residents of mobile home parks in Hemet?
Good point.
Would the council like us to prepare a presentation on the existing law that we have? So we do have on the books a methodology, a process in place for reviewing rent increases for mobile home parks.
That doesn't have a whole lot of teeth in it to stand up to unusual increases.
With the ordinance.
Yes.
And I think that, we can absolutely, I think it's important to discuss what we have.
Yes.
And the challenges we have with it. And one of those challenges is you're supposed to have a mobile home rent control commission who hears those petitions. And how many members do we have appointed to that commission,
Probably
Mr.
none.
City Clerk?
None at this time. Yeah, we've advertised and we've only received one application.
Create a committee for that? Or?
Well, I think that one thing that we can certainly look at is encourage, the city clerk's been trying to solicit applications. I don't think it would be a bad thing, no matter what you do, to solicit people in the community to serve on that commission. There's obviously a lot of interest in that issue now. In addition, we can bring forward a draft ordinance for the city council to consider and discuss related to rent control.
Since council members Krupa and Meyer were given documentation from the HOA or from the two here. Why don't you work on that? And
Can we work with legal to come up with something? The Rent Review Commission, the way it stands, which was voted in by the people, really doesn't have any teeth in it. The last time it met, I was the chair, which means it was before I got on council, a long time ago. We had 3 cases that were brought before us at that time. And in my estimation, one of them was fair and 2 of them weren't, but I was the minority vote. So but it is something with the number of mobile home parks we have in town, and we need something better than what that ordinance is. It was poorly written, but it passed because it was some type of a lifeline for the people 15, 20 years ago when in fact, I think it was in the 80s, that it was late 80s that it was passed, or the early 90s. It's been on the books for a long time and was never utilized because it's cumbersome. It's cumbersome for the parks or for the people, the residents of the parks, to bring a complaint or a challenge forward. So we need something that has teeth in it, that is fair to all concerned, and to get it done as soon as possible. Because what is happening right now at the lakes, from what we've heard and seen and read, it's going to be extremely financially a tough burden, tough burden for the residents out there to be able to pay.
And I fortunately, we have a fair amount of experience with mobile
Yes.
home firm. I started my career as the advisor to a city's mobile home rent control commission, did a fair number of hearings. Obviously, any increase in rent for people on a fixed income is difficult. There are, as you said, other factors to consider as well, including the cost of keeping the parks up. Like, we don't want our parks to fall into disrepair. And park owners do have a constitutional right to a fair rate of return on their investment. So those are things that every ordinance will balance. Other client cities have a large number of mobile home parks as well. And frankly, they have much more active rent control ordinances than we do here. So it's something we're familiar with. It's something we can talk about. I do think it's important, obviously, to listen to the residents on the issue. I think if you guys do form a committee, I think it'll be important to do some outreach to our park owners as well. Because, if you want to have an effective ordinance, you're going to want to find that common ground with the owners, so that we don't end up mired in litigation from whatever the end result of the process is. Mobile home rent control is not something that is alien to mobile home park owners. They understand the process. Generally, they'll participate. They're not going to like it, but I do think that it'd be good to engage all stakeholders. If you guys
But you in starting the process and getting some ordinance.
Well, it sounds like you may have a committee, people who are volunteering to serve on a council committee. I can certainly staff that for them, along with someone from the city manager's office. I mean, I can provide the legal perspective, but I can tell you, in those other communities that I serve that have active mobile home rent control, there's an administrative burden on the city. Because usually what it requires is every rent increase that's being proposed has to be reviewed by the city before it goes into effect. Someone has to do that. Someone has to receive that. Someone has to process it. There's costs involved in it. So I think it'd be really important to interface with the city manager's office to look at staffing, because it isn't like burdened with analysts at the city at this point.
Well, the WMA and other state organizations that represent mobile home tenants and park owners, I'm sure will weigh in on this. And but I've dealt with them in the past on prior things that we did through the commission, and for the most part, everybody was on the same page. I mean, you're right. The park owners have a right to make a fair return, but I have found that the owners of the mobile home parks in Hemet are very concerned about their tenants. So we really haven't, as for as many years as we've been going, the years that where the ordinance was passed, we had a couple, mainly one, park owner that was really out of line. And the other park owners worked towards trying to equalize and trying to get everybody on the same page. So I don't know. I think we'll have a conversation, but I think it will be positive conversation.
But does the council want to place this as a future agenda item, or did you want to assign it to an ad hoc committee? Mayor,
Make it,
that ad hoc committee could put it on a future agenda once they're done with their work.
I don't want to delay the process, so whichever process is
That's just the way
faster, I would like
possible.
to go with that, because they're gonna get their rent hiked up.
Okay.
And we're gonna be going in these committees and it's gonna be after the fact when we come up with something,
So
so
we-
I'd rather,
We can have a presentation and a
Streamline.
draft ordinance for discussion at the next meeting if that's what
Okay.
the council will want. But just be aware that without having that committee process, we won't have as much time for public input. I mean, I'm gonna do the best I can to come up with a fair ordinance. But I would expect people to have opinions
yeah.
and to show up to express them at the city council.
Yes, because, well, and that's the thing, when the city passes an ordinance, it pertains to everybody. That is quote, mobile home park connected, not just one park.
And maybe in the ordinance, we can address something that encourages 55 and older mobile home parks to stay in existence, because I feel like that's lacking in our city too.
Okay.
And it's creating problems when families are moving in with the elderly. We see
Yeah.
a lot of that.
Yeah, one thing they don't realize is that 55 and older becoming a family park, they are then subject to school taxes.
Ah.
And a lot of park owners don't understand that, nor do the people who move in there.
One thing just to, it might be something that you want to address at the same time. Maybe it's not. I did get, I don't know if it was sent to all the members of the council. I received a copy of it. We have a former resident who currently resides in Japan, who sent an email regarding the rent on his storage unit in the city of Hemet. And that storage unit rent has been dramatically increasing in the city of Hemet, and storage units are used by a lot of the residents. I know it's not necessarily anything to do with mobile homes, but it's also kind of rent control. I don't know if that's something you want us to look at as well, maybe in the future, or if that's just, or if we want to focus on mobile homes now, and need we look at storage units in the future. It caused me to look at the rent on my own storage unit. I was like, wow, I need to get rid of that. But I don't know if it's something you want to address at the same time or maybe in the future.
It was a request. And if we could somehow look at legalities of that, I mean, I didn't realize that you could do anything like that.
Well, maybe we'll do the mobile home presentation.
That's
and then
more
we will
eminent.
also look at storage units as a separate issue, because I think maybe that doesn't seem as urgent. We don't have a pending matter before us.
Right.
So we're gonna add this then to a future agenda? Okay, so we need a motion.
That's up to you. I was gonna kind
I
of.
think we should concentrate on motorhome and get that taken care of, and then we can focus on the other.
Sounds like mobile homes on a future agenda item, and then I will, just as a side project, research the storage, and I'll let the council know when that research is done, and if you're still interested in having a future agenda item.
I'll move to approve that.
Do I get a second? Okay. Can
I
I
have
get a,
I have a motion by Councilmember Myers, second by Councilmember Krupa. Council, please cast your votes.
keep forgetting.
That motion passes 5-0.
And then council, I would ask, you do have two items on future agenda items that I believe have been completed as of today. Review of section 82-172, that's number 5. And the Southern California Edison Services discussion. So hopefully the ordinance satisfies that. I don't know if you're quite satisfied with Edison, if that was a good enough discussion, or if you want to back at some future point, but you may want to consider removing both of those.
I would have to ask Councilmember Carly Meyer. Would you like them back? I know,
No, I mean, they can come back, I guess, if they don't perform.
okay. Then we'll just take it on.
But we may as well just take them off.
We keep knocking these out. You guys keep adding things to it.
Yep.
So moving on, there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned to the next city council meeting on February 14th, 2023. Thank you for joining us tonight.